All right, welcome back, everyone. So we're gonna open up some space for sharing. See, like, were there any highlights, any things that you would want to share with the larger group that came up in your breakout space? Feel free to raise your hand or just go ahead and unmute yourself and jump in. I'm taking a look. All right, not everyone at once.
Hi, this is Liz. I'll go ahead and speak up real quick. My breakout room was with Alex Zubia, I think his last name is, and it was nice to meet him. And he said he's a new transition. What did you call that, Alex? Outreach. But it was fantastic meeting him.
Network organization. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we kind of talked about as far as like problems within our community is just a divide. We're just, so caught up in, being divided and not being able to find commonalities, within, certain, groups to like kind of come together and solve the bigger, problems. So that was just one thing that was, a highlight of our conversation.
I saw a lot of heads nodding when you shared that. Seems like there's a lot of resonance. Any other folks have anything to share on that point about the divide in our communities, or anything else along this theme of repair that came up? We're going to have at least 2 more voices if possible. So be brave if you're able to.
I was speaking with Gabriella and Elvia, and it was really it's really moving to me that they're both young and dealing with issues about affordable housing and all the pollution and where they're living and all that sort of stuff, and just having to deal with all these huge problems like that at their age is I just feel bad that we've created such a world that they're having to struggle so much just to get by.
Totally. Another indicator that our system is sick when it cannot serve the needs of future generations. In fact, the system is at the expense of their future.
Yes.
That's real. Any other voices? We need at least one more voice to chime in.
Bonnie's got her hand up.
Go ahead, Bonnie. I'm not able to see everybody, but go ahead.
You're muted, Bonnie.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I met with Mary Sage, and it was really wonderful to meet her. She's from Minnesota, and I'm in Berkeley. So, yeah, a lot of things are broken, and it has to do with income distribution and just where we live. But I was really impressed with the solutions. She talked about re-envisioning the freeway going through the city, and San Francisco did something similar. They took down the interstate that went through San Francisco and at the Embarcadero, and it's really encouraging to hear those possibilities and people working on doing these things, reimagining there and repairing. So I was happy about that.
Thank you for sharing, Bonnie. Mary, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I was just sharing that I feel really blessed to live in a community where there's a lot of our transition town groups has a lot of people who have their arms in different organizations. And so when this reimagining I-94 project comes through, it's like it's in this meeting and then that meeting and then this meeting, and everyone's kind of like endorsing the letters, and it just feels pretty amazing to be linked with people who are linked deeper. Like the web is really like holding a lot of potential with everyone being activated in different organizations that are really like focused. So it feels hopeful in that way, that it's like, whoa, there's like a lot of people who are really taking time and like, meeting after meeting after meeting, and progress is happening. So it feels good. Yeah.
It is. That is so important to remind ourselves of. And I love what you just described with like this web, and like those relationships are so deep, and we just have to have the sight to see them and know where to show up to find these folks who are like wealth of knowledge in terms of the history of a community, where to find things. Like these folks are so critical, and finding ways for us to get the empowerment we need to step into that role, to at least be a wayfinder, a resource sharer, whatever that is. It's such an important role. I want to make space for any other voices before we jump back into the presentation, though. This is some rich stuff that was brought up. And again, if I can't see you, just go ahead and start chatting.
Something that came up in my group that seems worth sharing, because I think it's a common challenge in terms of repair, is leadership succession and the leadership structure of the transition group that my partner is part of. So I know that that's a common thing.
Absolutely. And Jay, I'm not sure if you're trying to add something into the conversation. Did you want to share? Okay. All right. Well, thank you folks for sharing. I'm going to go ahead and get us back into our PowerPoint. Let me grab this one. Okay. So I wanted to share this quote about repair because I think it's really powerful, and again speaks to the orientation that we want to kind of embody around this idea. And this is sourced from, and I have the link, and I'll be sharing this out with a bundle of other resources, and yes, including the toolkit, which has been promised that'll be going out to the group very soon. So this is from Wendy Funwell Wendy's 4 essays. They're amazing, super inspiring and creative, and he takes a look at reparations, which we'll talk about in a minute, in a really beautiful way. But this quote is from an architect named Christopher Alexander. Really invited us to think about how our built environments and our relationship to space kind of impact our way of being in the world. So I'll go ahead and read it out loud for impact. In the commonplace use of the word repair, we assume that when we repair something, we are essentially trying to get it back to its original state. This kind of repair is patching, conservative, static. But in this new use of the word repair, we assume instead that everything is changing constantly, and that at every moment, we use the defects of the present state as the starting point for the definition of the new state. When we repair something in this new sense, we assume that we are going to transform it, that new wholes will be born, that indeed the entire whole which is being repaired will become a different whole as the result of the repair. In this sense, the idea of repair is creative, dynamic, and open. And in his essays, Mwende Funwell Mwende discusses the Japanese art of Kinsugi. And I don't know if folks are familiar with that, but an image for your mind is a plate that has been previously broken and is gone and has been repaired and put back together using gold. So you can see these beautiful cracks and you can see gold kind of shining through, and it essentially has become a new whole. And I think that's what we're also really thinking about within this theme of repair, is the deep fragmentation. Folks mentioned that, the divide in communities. It's been exacerbated by political polarizations. And honestly, folks just feeling very overwhelmed and maybe clinging to ideas that are comfortable or safe for them in some way. But yeah, returning to wholeness as being part of this essence of repair that we're talking about. So again, this is, I'll send these out, but there's a link here to these 4 different essays, which are really beautifully written. And here's another really powerful quote, which I'll, again, if you'll bear with me, I'll read out to y'all because I think it's, again, that important. So those who call for abolition and decolonization are the exponents of artful reparations. White supremacists are the enemies of reparations, no matter whether artful or artless. And this is something that he talks about quite a bit within these essays. It's like, there is a way of doing artful reparations. I'll invite you all to have that journey on your own to kind of engage with that essay, but let me continue. So liberal globalists claim to sympathize with calls for reparations, but they refuse to admit that artful reparations are possible. And they argue that all reparations are artless. The liberal globalists speak of brave new peoples from whom the past is dead and the future is a boundless frontier. Exhausted by the liberal globalist speeches, those who call for abolition and decolonization retort, the past is never dead. It's not even past. The past is still alive in the present, but it is living in fragments and it is becoming ever more fragmented. Brave are those people who recreate the past anew, taking great care to piece together every recoverable fragment of the past that they have access to. I think that's just, again, really speaking to this deep repair and healing work that is so needed. And it is honestly the most inspiring work to me in my practice and my engagement with change work. Is around reparations, land back movement, returning sacred sites to Indigenous peoples, taking a cue from their leadership in terms of how we can most healthfully relate to the land and return and reclaim our own health in the process. We're also thinking about transforming systemic injustice. There was a mention of abolition in the previous quote, and that's taking a look at a carceral punitive system, this belief that people need to be punished, and that's the way that we make society better, and offering alternatives. And that's what abolition speaks to. It's all about repair. It's about transformative justice. It's about creating space for new kind of wholeness and healing. We're also, again, being mindful that each one of us is located within a specific place. We have relationships here. We have knowledge. Many of us may even have ancestral ties to different places that we call home. There are histories here that really need to be made known. We're also going to talk a little bit about mapping in a second, but I want you all to remember that mapping is more than just seeing where you are on a map. It's being able to track yourself through space and time, being able to track complex data and relationships through space and time. And you get that kind of rich information, let's say about your local neighborhood, if you're able to look through layers, you're able to see, how is this community shifted? What were policies that were made that made my community look the way that it is, and invest in whatever it has invested in over or not invested in over the years? So really being able to kind of channel your Sherlock Holmes kind of energy, like putting together all of these different clues and this different data that has been existing through time and space, can provide you with some rich insights about how to bring folks together, how to leverage, again, with what Mary was talking about earlier, like folks who are connected in different places. How do we get greater awareness of each other and collaborate with each other more impactfully? So again, when we're talking about repair, I mentioned the deeper healing work around reparations, land back, dealing with those original harms that are at the heart of this, the founding of this country. But we're also talking about repairing and upcycling. I know there's some folks from UC Berkeley here, and I'm going to give a shout out to the repair cafes, how those provide a really wonderful opportunity for intergenerational learning and sharing, like knowing how to fix, for example, a sewing machine, which was something I needed to do about a year ago. There was an elder who came to my, no, this was about 2 years ago, before the pandemic, came to my home and like showed me how the machine worked. It was a very vintage machine, but he had that knowledge and he was able to share that his grandmother used a similar machine or something like that. And it was just really beautiful to have that opportunity. So we can heal things, right? We can patch clothing so that we're not contributing to the fast fashion waste cycle. But we can also heal our relationships across generations, and really create space for a new kind of culture. And we're also talking about repairing and healing the land. I think that's something that's really critical. And Alvia, you mentioned that in your earlier sharing around having this this new relationship to your body's needs, and just also thinking about the earth. How you mentioned that parallel, like really needing to heal our watersheds, rebuild soil, do the ecological restoration work. So again, healing, repair, fixing. These are all memes that we want to kind of marinate on a bit. I want to give here an example of reparations. So this is sourced from a Washington Post article. And so this conversation around reparations, some folks may be familiar with Ta-Nehisi Coates' famous piece on reparations and why that is needed. The way that we're talking about reparations here broadly are, payment. Often that's often how they're discussed, as either payments or retribution, essentially for harms and abuses committed. There's a specific emphasis on the harms and the abuses and extraction that occurred in slavery, which continues to impact people to this day. We're also thinking about reparations in terms of the dispossession of Native peoples, the settling of land, like giving that land back. So it's like things that we kind of need to put on the table to have the space we need to heal. So reparations here, the reason why I pulled out this story, these quotes really showcase that local communities, not the federal government, which there are plans to have a special commission around reparations. How do we decide who gets them? All of these kinds of questions, but there are communities right now who are doing this work. And I thought this was a really important thing for us to reflect on here. And this is very much part of that transition spirit. You can't wait for the government a lot of the time. We want them to be a contributor, a collaborator wherever we can, but local communities who feel that sense of responsibility to create healing and who have that sense of history and a desire to have their communities be in a better state than they are now. That's what is driving this work. So there have been reparations projects in Chicago, Georgetown University. There were historical documents showing that the university had owned slaves and sold these slaves. And those documents allowed the university to track down descendants and actually create a fund for reparations. So folks are getting creative. They're not waiting for a federal kind of invitation for this work to happen. It's going on right now. I also wanted to give this example of an attempt at repair. For many folks, there's many different feelings about this, but this is Pope Francis, who has very recently offered an apology on behalf of the Catholic Church and the Vatican to First Nations people in the lands that we refer to as Canada for the harmful and absolutely violent residential school system that claimed many young Native lives and was part of the project of genocide, especially cultural erasure. So here you can see a First Nations man offering a gift, right? Pope Francis offered this apology. There's a gift in return. There's this promise of continuing to be in relationship. This work is not done. And again, there's a diversity of feelings on this gesture, but the point is the work continues, right? And you need to make space for healing and transformation and repair to happen. And you have to acknowledge, you have to name the harms, which goes back to our first session on resistance. If you're going to stop harm, you have to be able to name it and know where it's happening. This is also another really beautiful story. This is a picture of some beautiful land out here in Mendocino County, which is where I'm currently residing on Central Pomo territory. But many folks may have heard about this story in the news. This was an example of like over 500 acres of ancestral lands returned to the Sinkyone Intertribal Council, which has been led by Elder Priscilla Hunter, who is from the Coyote Band of Pomo, and her son, Michael Hunter. I was able to be at a community gathering, and Sandy, I think you're on the call too. You were able to participate in that. And I just I'm still struck by the beauty of that experience where folks were brought together by Pomo leaders to see the clear cutting that has been happening in their ancestral forests. And what was really beautiful and struck me about that experience is that you had a founder of the Mendocino Coast Trails Club, and I'm forgetting his name, but he mentioned his growing relationship with particularly Michael, who is the tribal chieftain of the Coyote Band of Pomo, and how his shift in thinking about things like stewardship has happened. And he mentioned, and I'm recalling because I was able to see this happen, that he was rethinking stewardship because it implies, and the assumption is that the land is a resource to be managed, as opposed to a relative, a caregiver, a nurturer, instead of that. And these things can feel subtle, but they make all of the difference here. So again, this is work that is happening right now, and I've just been struck by like the outpouring of support that I at least was able to witness from the community coming out, based on an invitation from Michael and his mother and other folks who have been doing this work, to get petitions, to take petitions up to Sacramento to help protect these lands and continue this land back work. So we're going to have another activity. This is going to be an opportunity for us to gather in about groups of 4. We'll check a look at who's on the call, but we're going to get started with some mapping. So I mentioned mapping earlier, that we want to think about it as a way of representing complex data and relationships through space and through time. Okay, as opposed to just, again, where am I on a map? Well, again, you can add some richness there. So again, recognizing that we're all calling in from different places, that many of us may be already working on projects or invested in different projects, or maybe looking to get started or connect with others at especially a regional scale. Want to invite folks to complete a survey. So we're going to use the breakout room for you all to start to take a look at the survey. This will also be sent out with that packet of resources that I mentioned, so you don't have to panic about completing it today, but you'll have some space to start to take a look at it, fill out some of the questions. I also want to invite you to use a couple data tools that might be interesting for you to engage with. I'll do a little tour of this one. So this is Data USA, and this allows you to kind of access lots of different kinds of data. So you can take a look. Let's take a look at California, for example. Let's see if this opens for me. So immediately it shows me the population, what is the poverty rate, median household income, who are our elected representatives, all of that. And then you can go deeper and deeper into the data and start to really gain a sense of place. And this tool is really, really interesting. So I, again, would invite you all, there's some questions on there that you may be able to get some help with by using this tool. You can also Google a lot of the information that'll come up in the survey. There are questions around like, what is the childhood poverty rate, for example, in your county? Do you know what the median household income is in your county? Like those kinds of questions. And then in the previous breakout room, you guys, you all were given the question, like, what region do you call home? And we also want to acknowledge that there are many, many different ways of defining a region, and that's fine. What we want to gain a sense of, again, is like, at a regional scale, we're invited to really feel into the fractal relationships that occur, right? So a regional kind of relationship all is representative micro kind of local connections and relationships, and those regions can in turn define larger regional scale relationships. So really thinking at that kind of regional level, and for many of us that may be counties, there may be clusters of states. Within the survey that you all have, you're asked to indicate which EPA region you're in, and it gives you a map and a breakdown. So anyway, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint if I can. I don't think it's letting me put it up again. Oh, there it is. Okay, so again, I was explaining the survey. Take a look at that. Don't feel like you have to complete it all. The idea is to get the juices flowing. You're going to be in a breakout room with other folks who are going to be engaging with the survey. And then from there, based on the questions that are in the survey, and again, starting to think about what kinds of repair work are you already doing, or how does it connect to resistance work? How does it connect to reimagination work that you are doing or would like to do? And again, we're talking about opportunities here to incubate projects for the week of action that was mentioned. You're not required to think along those lines, though, within this session. We really, again, just want to support you all with these peer-to-peer connections. We're going to be offering up an additional workshop space for this mapping activity, which is something we're going to continue to build on. So see this survey as kind of step one, and then from that data, we're going to start to organize folks a bit more from there. So really having that survey complete would be really, really helpful. And again, we want you to continue building relationships in these breakout rooms and getting to know each other. And if there are any needs in terms of like people that you want to be connected with or resources that you're needing to help you with your projects, please reach out. We want to be resources. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Elvia, who also has some other instructions for the breakout room. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to get them set up. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, if y'all could also please take some notes while you're all in your group. I think we definitely want to get a sense of like information or any conversations that y'all want to highlight in your group. So I'll be posting the notes on the chat. I also included the survey link and data tool that Jess mentioned. So yeah, we really appreciate if y'all could just take some notes. But yeah, I think if Jess gonna make the breakout group.
Yep, let me go ahead and create those. It looks like it wants to put you all. We're gonna put you, okay. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and open all the rooms and you should see your invitations.
All right. Well, for this final 15 minutes, we just wanted to like see if y'all wanted to share what you all talked about in your groups. If anyone share like if y'all want to share how you felt through it or anything or any highlights that you all found within talking. I guess for our group, we just went through the survey and we decided to just kind of talk. Like each one could like answer the survey and just kind of like go. And I think I learned a lot. Edwin, Elena, and Gabby were on my group and we were in different regions. I think, and one of them was from Seattle, and then Gabby was from Los Angeles, and I forgot where Edwin was from, but if you want to share them.
I was from Frederick, Maryland, so off on the East Coast.
Yeah. So we got to learn, some of us didn't know where our watershed's from. I personally didn't know that. So it was nice for us to kind of search that information up and also search up like for the childhood poverty. It was pretty sad to just even know that there was even, some percentage of people But yeah, if anyone want to share, and go for this.
Okay. This is Liz. I'm in Florida, and on Earth Day, which is tomorrow, we're going to launch a campaign. It's a citizens initiative, and it's called the Right to Clean Water. And basically, there's a group in Florida. It's called the Florida Rights of Nature Network. We're trying to give nature rights and to protect ecosystems. And so this campaign, because of the political climate, we're making a constitutional amendment so that no matter who's the governor and who's in the legislature and stuff, this right is like a human's right, and it's a nature's right. And what we're trying to do is, after we are able to successfully get this in and passed by the citizens of Florida, we are hoping that we do multiple rights of species, biodiversity, all kinds of rights. And so we're launching on Earth Day. And one of the people that was in on designing this constitutional amendment was Chuck O'Neill, and he had to leave the group because he is in a lawsuit. And it will be the first rights of nature lawsuit in the U.S. And so so Chuck had to step aside from our political campaign, which we're launching on Earth Day. And the other people that are involved is like Thomas Lindsay. He's another attorney, environmental attorney, writing the laws for Ecuador, the rights of nature and things like that. So we're trying to push through, get our foot in the door, and then keep pushing through all these constitutional amendments. And hopefully anyone in Florida or anyone that wants to help us or spread the word would be great. And I think that's all I have to say.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I think we'd definitely be interested in learning more from the work that you are working on our future podcast episode. But that's great. And I remember you also came in the first workshop, so glad that you came back. Does anyone also want to share any work around resistance, naming and stopping the harm, or repair, healing, reparations, land back, community wellness that you're currently involved in your community or that you know of and you want to get involved?
Locally, they have a transition group for businesses that I'm trying to figure out. So I'm kind of excited about that because they're trying to invest here to get more, have a more sustainable kind of setup here.
I can't speak for my organization exactly, but one of the things that we're doing, we're an environmental restoration, an ecosystem restoration organization, and we have land acknowledgements on all of our projects, but we're trying to go beyond that and see if we can create some kind of partnerships. Now that's a kind of delicate thing where we want to make sure that it's a productive partnership and not a one-sided thing. We want it to happen with respect, so that sort of relationship grows slowly if it's to be genuine. So we're not launching headfirst into it, but we hope very much that that someday we'll be able to work in partnership with some of the local tribes on our project.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I saw that Don has the hand.
Yeah, I live in a low-income cooperative, housing cooperative in Boulder, Colorado, that's part of a larger nonprofit called the Boulder Housing Coalition that has started 4 different houses over the past 25 years to address issues, mainly issues of affordability of housing, which came up again and again as issue pretty much everywhere. And I think it's a great tool for repair because it brings a lot of people together that normally wouldn't relate with each other, that, you know, may not cross paths with each other otherwise. And we're, you know, sharing food together, we're making decisions together, we're working on the upkeep of the house together and its culture. And, you know, that really bonds people in a very strong way. And you really get to see where different types of people are coming from and, you know, what matters to them. And I think it's, you know, a little kind of cauldron of connection. And I know, you know, there's communities like that all over the place.
Yeah, there is. And I think like it's cool that we could uplift more of those, like especially co-ops, since they're definitely alternative economies and moving away from extractiveness. And I think that definitely just reminded me of today I saw Jess participating in a panel on decolonizing economics conference. And I think a lot of the guests there were very awesome and they were doing a lot of cool work. And I think just like hearing their inspiring stories definitely seems to be like something that we should continue doing. And if y'all want to share any, you know, groups that you all feel inspired about, feel free to share them. But yeah, I think Cooperation Jackson is another cool group, Cooperation Humboldt. They're doing awesome work on the ground. But if anyone wants to share like also any projects, campaigns, or initiatives or solutions that you are most interested in learning about and implementing in your community, or just things that maybe you're all doing in your transition initiatives, if anyone's out here from TIs. Go for them.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you all. Something that we're currently engaged with right now in Transition Berkeley is it's a repair training class for high school students. And we're into the 10th week. It's a 12-week course. And we cover, you know, kind of big picture stuff about, you know, ecology and where things come from, what happens to them when they break, and why it's important for us to look at the system that is destroying everything, really, and what we can do, you know, what students can do, and that these skills that they learn, they can apply them just for themselves personally, or they can, you know, go many other directions, many other places. So it's just been really fun to watch how hesitant the students were when they first came to class. And a lot of students, a lot of people don't have skills with hand skills anymore, dexterous types of skills. So learning how to do simple sewing repair, threading needles, even just that was very challenging. But then as they got going, and they began to learn the tools. We have these beautiful Ifixit toolkits that each student gets, and they learn about the tools and they learn about the online resources that are available, so that they can find the things that they need, the parts and the places to look for instruction, videos and guides. And it doesn't take long, like just a little bit of empowerment, a little bit of direction. And, you know, now at this point, they're really not afraid at all. We had an Open Fix-It clinic last Friday, where they brought all kinds of stuff. One kid brought his go-kart motor. Somebody brought an heirloom lamp. One student brought an old vintage Sony Walkman with the cassette tape inside. The kids have never seen anything like that, and they were able to solder and get that working again. So yeah, it's just super exciting, delightful, and we hope to bring these kids into repair cafe or Fixit clinics once we're able to host those again when the pandemic is completely done. So yeah, I'm really, really on fire about this project, and looking forward to seeing if we can share it with others and keep it going in the school district.
That's awesome. The repair cafes. There was a article that was written by Aya, I think, and they're from Transition Berkeley, and I think Linda and Bonnie is also from Transition Berkeley, and they were doing amazing repair cafes in different areas. And y'all could like read more of that article in our last quarterly newsletter that we sent with the Regeneration Asian magazine. So y'all should go check it out. But thank you, Linda, for sharing. That's great. And we would love to hear any updates that y'all have. If there's any other future events, that'll be cool to take some pictures and share it with us. And yeah, y'all could also follow our Instagram to see more updates at Transition US. But I think we have 2 more minutes. If anyone has any last thoughts, if y'all want to share anything before we start parting ways. All right, well, I guess thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Jess, for the facilitation, and thank you all for participating and talking and sharing ideas. And I think this is how change starts happening. But thank you all so much. If anyone wants to say anything, now is the time to say something.
I'll quickly jump in. Thank you all for being here and sharing your evenings with us. There are resources that were shared today that will be sent out to the group. I'll also be sending out that survey that you all completed. Thank you for doing that. To the larger group, we had close to 300 people register for this workshop series. So we still want to keep them engaged and start to kind of see again, what connections can we form? If you're needing any more direct support, please reach out and we'll try to get you hooked up. But thank you. Thank you, Elvia. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.